welcome into the latest episode of So Into Bourbon. I am Charlie, and this is Glenn. Thanks for watching.
That's
what?
not right.
What?
That's not right.
not.
I'm Charlie, he's Glenn.
You're Charlie?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was very clever.
Are you sure?
Nope.
I am Glenn, he's Charlie, and what are we doing today? What are we drinking? What do we have here in front of us? I know you're excited.
I am excited. I'm always excited when we talk one of my favorite distilleries. It's my favorite distillery, Starlight. Starlight Distillery in Starlight, Indiana. Today we are doing a side-by-side comparison of their cigar batches. That's what we're doing.
Charlie, what do you mean by cigar batch? Is there tobacco juice in here?
Yes, so how they get this is old men smoke cigars and ash into a vat of mash, and then they mix it. That is not accurate. That's not what they do. Cigar batch.
Not tobacco in here?
No, there's no tobacco.
Cigars?
There's no ground up cigars. Cigar batch is an Amburana barrel. And Glenn's going to tell you some more about what Amburana barrels are and where they come from, because I have a hard time saying.
Amburana?
No, I said Amburana.
Kachaka. So.
Have you ever seen Ace Ventura 2?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Damn. They have a bat named Shashaka. But
anyway, Amburana. It's a hardwood native to South America. It's used most often to age kachaka. Kachaka is a fermented sugarcane beverage, very similar to rum, but do not mistake it for rum because it is not rum. Now.
Correct. That's what it is. So cigar batch, they call it cigar. I don't know why somebody invented it. And call it cigar batch or a cigar, whatever. All we know is we love it. And again, if you're watching this for the first time, I don't know how you found us, but this is not like a very fancy bourbon podcast. We're calling it a podcast. We're just here to have fun and to tell you what's good and what's not. And we have a catchphrase, which is very important. So here's what's in front of you. Starlight, about a year ago, released their first batch of cigar Amburana finished bourbon. They did 2 single barrels, and they let that sucker age for a while. I could have been a good podcast host and researched it, messaged some of those guys to give me all the specs on the original release, but guess what I did? I didn't do that.
Maybe 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah. Is this the 3rd release? Or the 4th? I think this may be the 4th.
You trying to make me look bad?
It's
the 3rd release.
Just want to give
it's 4th release. It's 4th release. It's the 2nd, 3rd.
I believe it's the 4th because they said this is the 4th time they use those barrels, and they will not use the barrels again for this purpose.
So
now, they may use them again for other purposes.
Other things.
We do not know.
Putting people in.
We are not privy to this information.
They don't let me up there anymore. That's not accurate. So what you see here, this is the original release, one of the original releases. This is the 4.5-year age stated 112.6 proof, which is the higher proof of the 2 barrels, the one I enjoyed the most. The other bottle that you see that is slightly open and slightly used is the most recent batch, which is their initial small batch release. It is a 4-barrel blend, a blend of 4- and 6-year-old different bourbons. And we're going to get into how that makes it different from the single barrel versus the small batch. So without further ado, Glenn's going to do some talking while I struggle with these stuff.
Charlie.
First try.
So let me ask you this. How long is this bourbon in the Amburana barrel?
That's a great question. Usually it's between 3 and 8 months. Obviously, it wasn't a bad pop. Smell that. Tell me that doesn't smell like heaven.
It smells like cigars.
That's not what it smells like.
It actually does.
You smell like cigars.
Have you ever smoked a cigar?
Once or twice.
To me, it does. It smells like tobacco.
Well,
you can't convince me otherwise. There is a reason they call it cigar batch.
Well, there you go.
Or maybe I'm just
You know what?
inventing things in my mind.
I think this episode is gonna go down in history as one of our worst. So let's do some nosing.
I mean, it doesn't have to.
I mean, how do you rank our episodes? I mean,
one of the worst.
One of the worst. So, anyways, if you're lucky enough to stumble upon one of these or have one of these, the two that are in front of you are distillery only releases. So if you weren't at the distillery, if you didn't pick one up on secondary, you're SOL. There has been, in the last 12, 13 months, quite a few different package stores that have done a single barrel cigar batch finish. So check your local stores, because you never know. If you live in one of those areas that got one, you may luck into one. So
real quick. So we talked about how long this is finished in the Amburana barrels. How long is this whiskey bourbon aged before it is put into the finishing barrel?
So this is a 4.5-year-old bourbon. I don't know if that means that it's 4 years old and then it ages for another half. My guess is, and I'm not, maybe Christian or Ted Huber will watch one of our episodes and comment below.
Doubt it.
It's never going to happen, is it?
Unless we strap them down to a chair and force them to watch.
Yeah, my parole officer says I shouldn't do that stuff anymore. So, but yeah, it's age dated 4.5 years old. So, color is deep, dark, and
Spilled.
God, we just can't have nice things. And all over your script too.
This would not be the first time that has happened.
Yeah.
I'm trying
So
to
what
be
do you-
fancy, hold
Yeah.
up to the light and tilt it. And
Yes,
spill it
yeah, he
everywhere.
spills it. So, but again, that goes to show you that,
Oh, my fingers.
bro, get out. We're not going to edit that out, are we? No?
No.
Good. Smell my fingers. That can be our next t-shirt. Drink it or sink it and smell my fingers.
Next, I'm gonna
that-
smell my fingers.
Gotcha. Get that Joe Rogan money ready. Who is it? Spotify? Whoever it was. Are we drinking? We're not even talking about the nose. We spill bourbon. Let me tell you what's on the nose. You have already drank. I'll tell you what's on the
Tell
nose.
them what's on the nose.
Pure, unadulterated cinnamon roll, sweet, savory. I mean, it is really pungent in all of the best ways. And it's really alarming. The first time, this is not my first bottle I've drank. It's definitely not going to be the last. The first time you nose this thing is an experience, because it's something you do not expect that a bourbon would have, or any whiskey would have, that sort of nose on it.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. So when they released the first cigar batch,
Which is what you're drinking.
I went up to Huber's to taste it and buy a couple bottles, and they were giving samples out, and it was kind of, I want to say it was early in the morning.
Nope, it
No?
wasn't. No, we were there together. We didn't talk. I was there. You were there. We weren't
I
friends.
stand correct.
We weren't friends yet. It was an evening. It was 5 o'clock, 5-ish.
It was some. Okay.
Nah. Anyways, go ahead. I'm just enjoying drinking.
Okay, so now you've thrown me off now. Anyway,
You didn't enjoy it.
my initial taste, it kind of shocked my system.
Yeah.
It really did.
Totally.
And I really didn't know what to think. I didn't know if I liked it, if I didn't
Yeah.
like it. I bought it anyway. Upon second and third tastings, it kind of started working through all those
It is
flavors that just kind of,
incredibly unique.
yeah.
Sweet, savory, peppery, caramely. I mean, it just, and the flavor just lingers, and it has this warming all the way down. I mean, it's a really, really unique offering that, and I don't throw this term around a lot. That's a great bottle of bourbon. And,
It is.
And now, it's not going to be for everybody. If you're a bourbon purist and you like a high corn mash bill and just want to taste your corny corn and your alcohol, and then you're going to hate this. But if you're more on the adventuresome side and really like to kind of push the limits of what bourbon is and distilled spirits, I guess, this is a really great bottle of bourbon. And it hurts me that this is my last one.
If you like to be challenged, if you like to challenge your palate and challenge your nose, this is the bourbon to do that. And like Charlie said, I don't think I've ever tasted anything quite like it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what a good bourbon is all about, is just challenging you with something new and just...
Something really new.
Right.
Something, because the finishing process on these Amburana, whatever. Cachaca. Barrels is, it overwhelms in a good way to where, to me at least, the mash bill, the age, it all kind of falls away and you're left with just whatever this awesome savory nastiness is. And like, it's just so good. Now, one word of advice. This is an end your night bourbon. You're not starting off a tasting with this.
No.
Because it will jack your palate up and make everything you drink after that be like, oh, that doesn't taste good. And you'll wonder.
Ruin everything.
Yeah, this is an end your night. So if you're lucky enough to have a bottle of this or any other cigar or Amburana finished product, this is an end your night or start and end. Don't think you're gonna do a lot of complex tastings after getting into some of these bad boys, because it's not gonna go well for your palate.
So something that I picked up on this, and it's been a while since I've had this one, is the caramel. It's standing out to me, which is not something that I remember picking up before on this one. And like you said, the cinnamon roll.
Yeah. It's just another animal altogether. And really, this is why I love Starlight. And my friends and even Glenn will make fun of me because my bar, and I don't know if you see kind of behind me, those are all Starlights and different offerings and different finishes and different mash bills and different barrels. Those guys are mad scientists up there in the best way. And we spoke about it in our last episode about Hard Truth. The advantage of small, privately owned distilleries is they can do whatever the flip they want, whenever the flip they want to do it. So there is no board of directors or, master distiller or whoever telling them like, no, we're going to do this because we need this for the quarter and we're going to release this at this price point. The guys at Starlight, the Huber family, are pushing the limits and not afraid to experiment with some really, really cool finishing processes and mash bills and barrels and char levels. And the product that they put out, if you haven't gotten any, you're doing yourself a disservice, because
getting progressively better
as time goes on, which is what you want. You want that from a bourbon, right? Like I want older bourbon. The longer it's in the barrel, the better it is. The longer Starlight's there and the longer they put out products, the better it gets every time. So
speaking of which, we have another one to try, right?
We so do. So this is their most recent release. I'm going to move this one so nothing bad happens to it.
He always puts it away from my reach.
I'll see you later. This is their small batch cigar. So this is a blend of the 4 Amburana barrels that they had.
So that was a single barrel.
That is a single barrel that we had. Yep, that is one barrel. This is a blend. That's what small batch means. Small meaning 4 barrels. The bourbon in these barrels was between 4 and 6 years old. So the age statement is 4.5 years old. Glenn, do you know what the age statement means on that?
So if I remember correctly, the age statement is the youngest barrel that's put into the bottle. So it may have a 30-year blended in here, but if the youngest bourbon that goes into the bottle is 4 years, you have to call it a 4-year bourbon.
That is 100% correct. That was unscripted, put him on the spot. Gold star for that young man. So this is a blend, as I mentioned, 4 and 6 year old stuff, finished in those same Amburanas. And I have tasted this one, as you can see, once or twice. So I'm gonna let Glenn taste this one. And then I'm going to taste it after.
Full disclosure, I have tasted it too.
Well, he did. There's tasting it and then there's tasting it.
But this has been open for, what, a week now?
A couple of days, yeah, a couple of days.
Comparing it to the first one, which was higher proof.
Yep. Yep. So the
normally we wouldn't start with a higher proof and go to a lower proof.
We wouldn't. This is 106, 106 proof.
Not a huge difference.
Not a tremendous difference, but a difference nonetheless. So. Nice caramel color.
Caramel. Wait, Carmel's a city in Indiana, right?
My brother lives in Carmel. It's
the
beautiful.
color is about the same.
It is about the same, and I think you're going to get that color out of any Amburana. Now this one, I cannot wait. So we tasted this. We don't nose that yet.
She got legs.
Don't do that either. We can't afford to pay them the royalty. God, ZZ Top will sue us so fast. No, let it go.
We're dead, right?
No, just one.
Okay.
Funny thing about ZZ Top, totally off topic.
Sure.
There are 3 members of ZZ Top. You know ZZ Top because 2 of the guys have a very long
beard.
That's right.
White beard.
Very long beards. The 3rd member does not have a beard. Do you know what his last name is? Beard. God bless you, ZZ Top. We had a sample of this at the release. Glenn and I were both there, and they were nice enough. And this is one of the things you get from Starlight. Tell me any other distillery that you would go to and wait in line for a release, and the master distiller would come out with a bottle and pop it and start pouring people samples. There were hundreds of people in that line, and they went through a couple bottles, just letting everybody try before you buy. Very small samples, which was very kind. This is a different animal when you...
I got 2 samples.
That's...
Because my wife doesn't.
That's true. Yeah.
She was kind enough to buy.
Don't tell me.
But getting back to that, you were talking about the master distiller handing out samples and also pushing dollies of cases of bourbon into the store for us. So it's all hands on deck at Starlight. There is no pretentiousness. You go up there any day of the week, you're going to see Christian Huber or Ted Huber wandering around.
And they'll talk to you. They'll have a conversation. They'll tell you anything you want to know about any of their products. They're so personable and so kind, and it's a totally different experience. If you're used to the Bourbon Trail, which I have nothing against, I love the Bourbon Trail. There's some amazing distilleries and beautiful places and amazing people there. Starlight is a different animal. It doesn't feel like a distillery until you start drinking, and then you're like, this is the best distillery ever. So I cannot...
Enough of the love affair with Starlight.
I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on the nose on that.
It's different. It's much different.
It's totally different. It's totally different, which is awesome.
I don't get the
cinnamon roll.
The cinnamon roll on this one. I almost get... Don't kill me for saying this, but there's almost a minty.
I would not disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like a really, almost like pine needles.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it has and Christian uses this term, like a funk. And if you've ever smelled the older distillate, the really older distillate, that 60s, 70s, 80s stuff, it has kind of that funk to it. And this has that funk, and you can't really explain it until you smell it.
It's funky.
It's funky, but it's got it. So, cheers. Cheers.
You know, it's funny. When I tasted this the other day, I thought, okay, yeah, it's the same cigar batch that we had before, but tasting them side by side, it's not the same.
Whole nother animal. And that's what's so cool about these two. And there is one in the middle that is a bottled in bond, which would actually not be in the middle. It would be even a lower proof than this one. And they are all three incredibly unique in their own way. You still get the Amburana, but a different kind of level and complexity to it. So this, I kind of call this one Cigar Light compared to the other one, because you still get those flavors, but in a much more subdued, and in some ways for me, much more complex. We did this in the wrong order, because we should have done this one first, but I wanted to be able to compare it to this one. But what I like about this one, the small batch, is the bourbon comes more forward. You get more of your traditional characteristics, and the Amburana is just there, and it's just giving you like, hey, what's that flavor? And it's a really unique, really cool pour, and it's really fun to drink.
It's true that this one smacks you in the mouth, just kind of boom, hits you right in the mouth. And this one, and I will say this, had we started with this one, I would probably have the same impression, totally. The same feeling. Yeah. But since we started with the higher proof one, this one is a little bit more muted, so we have to take that into account.
Yeah, it's not, the highs aren't as high with this one, but because the highs aren't as high, you don't get that, and I don't want to use the word overpowering, because there's nothing overpowering about the single barrel, but it allows you to taste things on this one that you can't taste on the other one. You can taste that kind of sweet corn. You get more of the complexity and the traditional bourbon profile, but still having that really cool Amburana finish.
So just to add something here, as it's sat in the glass, I get less and less of that minty nose, and it's settling more into what I picked up on the first one.
Totally. Yeah. So you get this, it kind of evolves as it sits in your glass. You get this really unique nose on the front, and then as it kind of evaporates off, you're kind of left with, there's that cinnamon, sweet, sugar, butteriness. But I really...
And the same on the palate, really.
Yeah. I really, I didn't know what to think of this, because when you've had the initial offering, that single barrel, either one of them or both of them, it sets the standard of, that's what a cigar batch is going to taste like. And then you kind of like, I think everything has to live up to that. This is an awesome offering and allows a different level of complexity than the other, but in the best way. It's not trying to be the single barrel. It is a small batch, but it is, again, a great bottle of bourbon. Really complex and really fun to drink, and you taste something different as you drink it and every time you drink it. So,
speaking of other cigar batches, have you had the Joseph Magnus cigar?
I have not.
I haven't either.
I have not had it, but if you're at Joseph Magnus watching this and would like to send us a bottle, send it care of Glenn Hockersmith at 123. No, I haven't. I would really like to. I just have never found one in the wild, and that's why I haven't had it. If I saw one on a shelf, I'd probably buy it.
I haven't either. From what I understand, it's a totally different flavor profile. They're not the same.
Yeah, I have heard that as well, and that's what makes bourbon awesome. Is you can have people doing the same thing and the same mash bills and the same barrel types, but they're separated by a couple 100 miles or even less than that, and it tastes totally different. And that's what's awesome about bourbon. So to piggyback on that, and I know we're kind of going longer than what we normally do, but you saying that reminded me of something my wife said when we were up at Starlight, standing in line to get this cigar batch a couple weeks ago, and you were a little further ahead of me in line, and I was back a few spaces, and my wife comes out, and I'm talking to these gentlemen in front of me, and turns out they're really cool guys. They've got a podcast called The Broken Cork.
I don't know if you've ever heard it, but I checked it out after meeting them, just having some conversation with them. But when we left there, she was telling me, she was like, it's just so interesting to me how you can just stand there and talk to people who you don't even know, and you get so into this bourbon, and you can just talk and talk and talk for hours about bourbon. And I'm like, yeah. I think about that too. It's a really cool thing, and I think, gosh, that is weird, isn't it?
This is not scripted. This is not set up. A young lady came and stood in line next to me. I was a few people in front of Glenn. She was there because her husband was on a hunting trip and she couldn't make it, or he couldn't make it, so she was there to get his bottles. And we were in front of a family from E-Town, Elizabethtown, that had driven up, and we stood in line for 30 or 40 minutes. And we talked about everything. We talked about their jobs and my job and the economy and bourbon and what we like. And I talked about Starlight, and they talked about different bourbons that they like. And it is amazing to me, whether you're in line at a distillery or for a liquor store release, that always happens. And that's what's, again, pretty great about bourbon, is that, what other hobby can you have where you'll, make friends with total strangers who you may never talk to again, but you have a nice chat and conversation that you normally wouldn't.
I liken it to sports. As a man, you grow up, and a lot of times you don't have deep, serious conversations with your dad, right?
But you'll talk about the ball game.
You can always talk about is sports, and the same with bourbon. So, with that, I think we've said just about all we can say about this, right? No, okay, I'm wrong. I'll sit here and drink, and you talk.
No, you won't. Catchphrase time.
Oh, do we really?
Yes.
You know what? We're not going to do drink it or sink it, because obviously we're not going to sink this. We're going to do pour it or store it.
Oh, snap, son. Boom, so, catchphrase number 2.
Is this a bottle that you pop it open and you drink it, or do you store it away and you hold on to it?
God, it's that was awesome. Totally unscripted, not prepared. The reason that I love Starlight, and this is a great question, because we all have that feeling of when we find that special bottle, whether it's at a liquor store, at a distillery, we buy it because we want to drink it, usually. But then we think, if I drink it, then I won't have it anymore. So what do I do with it? My philosophy on Starlight is, if I start squirreling them away, then I've already lost. So anything now, I have some unopened bottles of Starlight, just because I've got 30 something open now, and I don't need another one. But I opened one on Tuesday night that was a limited release at the distillery. It's gone. I can't get another one, but I opened it because I wanted to see what it tasted like. So for me, Starlight are for sure. If it's a Starlight, it's what is the options?
Pour it or store it.
Pour it. Pour them all, baby. And I have a store of bourbon, but these are always pour for me. What about you?
That's another thing. So it's interesting. Bourbon collectors are interesting because, not to be sexist here, most of us are men. Mm-hmm. Not to say that there's not tons of women out there who appreciate bourbon, but I almost think it's an ego thing. It's a collection. Oh, I've got this, and you're talking to your friends. Ooh, look what I got. It almost becomes, oh my gosh, if I drink it, I'm not going to have it anymore. I'm not going to be able to brag. What if I can never get a bottle of it again?
If I drink it or if I sell it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that happens. And that is a real thing, that there are people that collect things just for the sake of collecting them. If you collect bourbon to collect bourbon, kudos to you. That's awesome. If you buy bourbon to collect it for a while and then sell it and buy something else, kudos to you. That's awesome. If you buy bourbon to drink and you think all those other people are stupid, kudos to you. That's awesome. Yeah. But stop shaming people for doing their hobbies. It's tough out there, right?
It is tough. Although I will say, pour it and store it. Buy one to drink.
Pour it and store it. Glenn Hockersmith with some real pearls of wisdom tonight. So
in the bourbon, don't forget to subscribe and like comment, send us bourbon.
Or money, Spotify. We'll take some of that Joe Rogan money. Or Joe Rogan, just
Go
send us
into
money.
bourbon@gmail.com. Email us. Send us your thoughts. Give us some ideas on future episodes.
That would be great.
What do you want to see us try? What do you know?
Follow me on OnlyFans.
Your feet are beautiful. Goodbye.
Cut.